All right. We are live on YouTube. And I have Adobe Audition working today, so we got that going for us. And I'll start. You know what? I can't do the backup recording on my board today because my SD card is full. I just need to get a much bigger SD card for that. All right. Audition recording has started. We are live and ready to go. You good?
Yep.
All right, not a bunch of tomfoolery before we start the show on YouTube this week. So,
all right.
Center. Good morning, Cam.
Good morning, Mitch. How are you?
I'm doing good. How you doing, man?
Things
going well.
And It's been a rough week, but happy to be here.
Yeah, same here. Work has been weird this last week, but I did speak with my wife last weekend, and I might be moving my office from the basement that has a tendency to be like 40 and 50 degrees during the winter, which is cold, and to a bedroom that we're not using upstairs that I do have to do some remodeling in there, but moving it up there and it not being so cold. So
yes,
we'll have
high
proper
rises.
Cooling up there. Yeah. So
there might be a new location for you in the near future.
You might see some of my background change a little bit. I plan on taking the shelves up there with me and buying some more shelves, but my little shelf off to the left hand side of me is won't be following me up there, so I'll have to rejigger that.
Thrawn will have a new
Thrawn and my Kowakian monkey lizard will have a new place to live. So
there we go.
Yeah.
Kowakian monkey lizard. Yeah, I had that one right off the top of my head.
Yeah. Oh. Any good Star Wars nerd knows what a Kowakian monkey lizard is.
All right, I guess I'm a bad one then.
Come on, Cam.
Kowakian monkey lizard.
So,
all right.
One thing it is going to afford me is it's going to afford me an opportunity to redo my desk, which I had totally planned or thought about actually buying, because you can buy a desk frame, because I really like my desktops. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to change those, but what I have built underneath it, I think I'm just going to scrap all of that. But I needed a new desk frame. Well, I wanted something that was like a sit stand desk, so it would raise and lower. And I found one on Amazon, but I'm not going to pull the trigger on that yet. I have enough 2x4s around here of varying lengths that I can put together a new desk frame, and I've got a plan for it. And so at some point, I want to at least have a sitting desk to sit at, because right now my desk is very high, because it was initially designed to be a standing desk, and I usually sit at it most of the day. So or when I'm down here, I'm pretty much always sitting. So I just figured, why not just build a sitting desk? So and I thought, well, if I make a sitting desk and then I get one of those silly VersaDesk things that will allow my computer to move up and down for me, dude, those are as expensive as the frame that I was looking at buying. So
really,
I'll hold off. And well, yeah, you're talking like $300-400 for one of those VersaDesks, and then the frame that I was looking at buying was $449. So
I would have assumed that the frame would have been more expensive.
No, believe it or not, it's not at all. So, but we'll be waiting on that. I will build myself something in the meantime, but I've got to do some remodeling. We've got nice maple hardwood floors underneath the carpet up there. So that was one of the first things I'm going to do after we get that room cleared out, get that carpeting up, refinish those floors. I want to paint in there. Because right now it's got like circa 1970s paneling, and it's ugly and awful. So I want to do some painting in there, and should be real nice. So I've got an idea of how I'm going to do it all. So
Well,
very cool. So stay tuned. Well, Apple released a new app. Did you see
yeah,
this app?
I didn't know about this. This is news to me.
All right. So right before we're getting ready to record, Cam says, "What? Apple released a sports app? What?"
I had no idea. Hadn't heard.
So it's actually really simple, and I'm gonna do a quick screen share here so you can see it. But all right, I gotta set up the screen sharing. Hold on, it'll only be a minute. All right, it's connecting. It says it's connecting. Come on,
Wait
computer,
for
you can do it.
it.
All right, there we go. All right, so this is the new Apple Sports app, and I've heard some people say that it is a little bit more complicated than it needs to be in its simplicity. I know there was a news story this last week that said that I think it was who's our friend at Apple. Oh shoot, his name is totally escaping me right now. But he said that this app was designed to be super simple and easy to use and not have a lot of the fluff that a lot of your other sports apps have, which is a
Mm-hmm.
kind of an Apple approach to a lot of this stuff. So what you're looking at right now is a today view in Apple Sports. You can look at upcoming, so you can tap over and you can see other games that are coming up. Right now, there's really not a whole lot going on. There's just hockey, as far as what I pay attention to. I'm sure you'd have basketball on there. Wow, that sounded like a really judgy
I
tone.
was gonna say, wow.
Oh, you would
wait,
have
wait till the end of the show when I get to do the same to you about baseball.
But this is my team's view. You can actually go in and set up like what view you want. So if you want to look at my leagues, so any leagues that you're subscribed to now, notice that the NFL and college football are not in here yet. They will be adding those, but the seasons are over, so there's really nothing to look at right now anyway. But you can tap on my leagues and it'll bring up the whole league instead of just the one game of your favorite team.
Mm-hmm.
You can pull up, like, the MLB doesn't have anything going on today because they haven't started yet. There's the NHL, so you can look at all the NHL. And then if you want to look at any of the other sports leagues that are currently in here, you can take a look at the NBA. So here's the NBA games that are going on today. If you have have the NBA set up as one of the leagues that you're following, that will show up in your today view as well. So either if you got a team, or if you're looking at the league as a whole. But it's actually really simple. And then you can tap on the manage button and go in and favorite things um, and more specifically go in and favorite teams and stuff like that. So pretty simple app.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of waiting to see what the live like the live activities are going to look like. What They really don't have notifications built into this at all that I could find. So I gotta switch back to my teams. All right. So that's that. I mean, it's super simple. I'm just hoping that it does, in fact, have live activities integrations, so it'll give me one more choice. Because normally, what I'm using is the what's it called? Sports alerts. But the Sports Alerts app is pretty janky.
Oh, yeah. I don't like that.
Yeah. But it's interesting that it has where the Apple Sports app didn't have the spring training games in it. This does. So interesting. But this has a very basic idea, but but it's still like pretty janky. But it gets you the information that you need, and really the strength of this app is the notifications. It does notifications, it does live activities, and does them pretty well. I'm not disappointed in the way they do the all the other stuff. So, all right. And you can see I do have the Apple Sports app right on my home screen because I'm trying it out. So
I'm sorry. Is it the one that has the one that says sports with the soccer field? Is that?
yeah, yeah, that's the icon. Not a great icon.
Okay.
Not a great icon. But
yeah, not my favorite.
But it is Apple. It's probably another way for them to promote Messi. So
yeah, surprised it's just on his face.
yeah. Good gravy. I wish
Messi
I had a
sports.
I would make pretty good bank if I had $1 for every time I seen that guy's face in the last week. So I'd be doing all right. So do we want to talk about Crackgate?
We can talk about it for a little bit because I don't think it's as big of a deal as
it's at least a hilarious joke. I'm sure I've got to think that somebody's made some good jokes around Crackgate. You got to be careful how you say it too, because the K and the G just don't flow well.
Yeah. So, anyways, the deal with Crackgate is that some people are seeing cracks right in the center of their Apple Vision Pros, and it's on the Vision Pro subreddit if you care to see pictures. I think it's pretty hysterical. I mean, if I just spent that kind of money on something and it cracked the first day, I'd be so pissed. And Apple's charging the deductible for the AppleCare Plus deductible to fix any of it. And so what I've read is people are just going to wait till it's more scuffed up from wear and tear and then get it replaced. But it is kind of funny that a product that's that expensive is already experiencing some flack from the community for the really fancy screen on the outside having a crack straight down the middle. It makes me chuckle. So that's really it. It's a thing. It's out there. We'll see.
It's one of those problems that I can definitely see is a problem of lack of testing. If there's a lot of folks that have talked about the Apple Vision Pro as being a beta program, like a public beta program, or more recently like the developer kit. There's a lot of people saying that they don't feel like this device is really like a finished product by their estimations. And so I think this is one of those little things where when you don't have this device out in the world with millions of people or even hundreds of thousands of people using it, this is something that could very well slip through QA because you don't have enough people testing it. So, and not enough use cases. This is definitely could be something where people are putting it on their face with the wrong light shields or something like that, where it's putting pressure on that screen or that.
Yeah. The other thought glass too was it overheated while charging because they left the cover on it, which apparently you're not supposed to do.
That could be too.
Mm-hmm. So there's also people commenting of like, we have just as much proof that these people dropped it as we do that it's heat. And it does not seem to be widespread whatsoever, but it is making the rounds on Reddit and therefore getting onto Apple websites. So
yeah, you'd need like 2 or 3 people to have the issue for it to become a thing. And really in the volume that this is selling in, that's all it really would take. There's a few loud people, commenting on this. I don't think I've heard any of the guys that we follow that have them right now, that are saying that they're having any problems with any of this yet. So we'll see. But yeah, so Crackgate. Nice hard pause between
Crackgate. That's the official jingle for Crackgate. You heard it here first, internet. You're welcome.
Oh, I appreciate you for so many things.
Just not my jingles.
I didn't say that.
Yeah.
But I may have implied it.
It's not as good as your By Menon, but we'll take it. Hot Pockets.
So, all right. So while I'm pulling up your webpage, and I recommend that people do this, we're going to talk about Cam's recommended apps today, and probably have some discussion around them. And I might even have a few that I'll throw in. This is something that I haven't thought about as much as Cam has. So I'm kind of going to let Cam lead the conversation on this one today. But before we do that, we have to do this. All right, Cam, let's walk through your recommended apps.
All right. So
by the way, before we do that, CamBrennan.com.
Yes. CamBrennan.com.
I will put a link in the show notes.
Sweet. It's if you go to CamBrennan.com, then go to Good Stuff. It's in that list of things that I deem good stuff, of which you'll also find a link to innerdialogue.show.
Hey.
Boom. And my other show, The Masterclass. All right, recommended apps. I first made this page, I think, 2020 or 2021. So this page has been on my website for a number of years and has been updated in, throughout those years, obviously, as things change, as new apps come out, as old apps go out of fashion or support, right? That sort of stuff. I last updated it February 5th, so 2.5 weeks ago. So this is the latest and greatest, folks. But of course, this is my opinion. So
I just need to copy and paste this onto one of my pages and then change the apps to what I want, what I would do. Just copy all your stuff.
This is my IP, Mitch. You can not steal it. So we're gonna start with iPhone apps, and then as I put on the actual page, assume that any app listed in the iPhone section is also used on the iPad and the Mac, unless otherwise stated. So starting with the iPhone, I have these listed by category, and I'm pretty sure the categories are alphabetical because I'm a nerd. So we're gonna start with automation, which of course is shortcuts, right? There really isn't. There are add-ons to shortcuts, like utilities that you can use with shortcuts to extend its functionality. But really, if you want to automate stuff on your Apple devices, shortcuts is the way to do it. And I use it on all my Apple devices to do things easier. It's quite nice. If you don't know what shortcuts is, go to macstories.net and look up Federico's coverage on shortcuts. He'll do a much better job than I could. My Bible app, and I know I have Logos on my phone, right? But it's more powerful on my computer, right? But my preferred Bible app is the ESV app itself. I think the YouVersion app, which is the most popular one, is not great. It's just too much information. And it's got like social sharing and blah, 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 all that. Like, I just want my Bible app to be my Bible app, which is why I appreciate the ESV. It's clean. It's well designed. It happens to be the translation that I prefer. And they've actually, they have audio for the entire Bible, and you can choose different people to read it. So I can listen to it, while I'm doing dishes or, getting ready. And then they also came out with daily reading podcasts. So they have I think 8 different daily Bible reading podcasts that you can subscribe to, all sorts of different plans and ways to get through the Bible in a year. And so I've been listening to the M'Cheyne reading plan, which is read by Kristen Getty, who's from Northern Ireland, and is just fabulous. She has such a nice, pleasant voice and an awesome accent. So ESV app is my choice. There are reading plans in there, but the ability, it's just it does what it's supposed to do and nothing else. It's not cluttered. It's just, I like it. But I know that you You use Logos, right, on
Yeah.
your phone?
I use Logos, and you talk about it being not as powerful. I think with the Logos app on iOS and iPadOS, the features are there. It's just a little bit more difficult to use them
Yeah,
because
I should
just
restate.
the
I prefer to use
platform.
it on my
Yeah,
Mac because it's easier to do it
yeah.
with the keyboard.
It
And
doesn't have all the features. Let's be honest about that.
but no, it's still very
But
full
it has a
featured.
lot of
Yeah,
features.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm. The other day, I was looking for. There's a particular feature that I really like. It's a word for word, um, like Greek or Hebrew to English
Mm-hmm.
parsing, and I think it's just called word for word content or something like that. But you can put them in your guides, and it's in the exegetical guide that comes with Logos, and that is available in the app. So if you're on the iPad or iPhone, you can actually go in and use that feature. And I really dig that. So you just pull up the exegetical, what is it, exegetical guide,
Mm-hmm.
and it comes as part of that. So
Yeah, no, Logos was great. It's really expensive depending on the packages that you get, right? But it's a very, very powerful and helpful tool for Bible study for sure. Calendaring is my next, and I just use the stock Apple Calendar. I was a Fantastical user for years, and that used to hold this spot. But they upped their subscription, and I didn't want to pay what is it, $29.99 a year for a calendar app when the Apple app does fine, you know. And
the
I
one
don't
thing that
use. Go ahead.
one thing that I would check out with Fantastical is that if you have purchased it in the past, you still have those features. Whatever you purchased, it's just the additional feature since they went to the subscription model that you don't have access to anymore.
Mm.
So, so like some of the trying to think of what some of the newer features are. Some of the like managing your calendars, having
Oh, like the
calendar
calendar
groups.
sets and all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, I didn't.
Um, proposing times for other people. When you're trying to schedule times to do stuff like that is not accessible if you don't pay the subscription. But otherwise, like the normal calendaring stuff that the calendar app does is still available. So,
Good to know.
but anyway, carry on.
Next up is email. Uh, I use Spark. It's fine. It's the Apple stock app is fine too. Um, you just get a couple extra features with Spark, like you can customize your sliding options a little better, I think, than with the stock app. But I don't like email, so I just don't really want to talk about that one.
I will pipe in. I'm a Spark user as well, and I went back to using the Apple email app for a while because every time they talk about it at WWDC, I'm like, oh, it has some new features, and then I start using it again. I'm like, oh, I just hate the way this looks. And it's just not the way my brain works. So Spark, I think it took me a little while to get used to the like Spark 2.0
Yeah,
design.
yeah.
I mean, you can change it. You're
Yeah.
not stuck using it. But I challenge myself to just use it and get used to it, and I actually don't mind it so much. That's my preferred way of using the app now. So, but I'll put in for Spark email as well. I think it's really good. I know some people really like MimeStream, which is only available for the Mac, as far as I know. They haven't moved
Yeah.
that to, and I don't know why it makes it so good. Just some people just really like it. Outside of that, there's really not a lot of email that people are crazy about. So,
Yeah, well, Hey had its moment in the sun, and then
yeah, I tried that too. I hated
it. Up next is music. I use Apple Music. I know a lot of people are Spotify fans, and there are pros and cons to both. Like Spotify has historically done a better job with their year in review sort of stuff, but Apple has started to up their game in recent years with that. Um, but I pay for the Apple One subscription that gets me, Apple Music, Apple TV, 2 terabytes of iCloud, the whole package. Um, because I need the iCloud storage. I was paying for it anyways, and I was paying for Apple Music, so it was essentially cheaper to do the one subscription and get all the extra stuff than paying separately for Apple Music and the iCloud storage.
No,
I know a lot of people, like I said, a lot of
really,
people like Spotify, and that's great.
yeah.
It just doesn't work for me currently.
I like Apple Music. I think they all have their opinions on how you should use them,
Mhm.
and I think that when you look at Apple Music, for one, I avoided is it the for you screen?
Mhm.
Let me pull it up real quick so I know what I'm talking about here, because it's so easy to like use this app and not know what you're doing. Um, but no, it's to listen now. So right
Oh
now
yeah.
it's down for some reason. Oh, there we go. So the listen now I do like because it shows you like what you've recently played and stuff like that. So it gives you some recommendations. Or the library. I think the browse button is ridiculous. Browse and radio really have no use for me, um but the listen now page I think is the one that I discovered recently that is kind of changed the way that I use the app instead of always going into the library
Mhm.
to find something. Like I'm pretty much rotating around like anywhere from 2 to 5 playlists at a time. So I'm not, or albums or whatever. So I'm not listening to a ton of stuff at any given time. So the listen now recently played section, usually gives me what I want. So yeah.
I do think it's funny though. Like, so one of my top picks is replay and share your top music for the month, and it takes you to a website. It doesn't keep you in the app, and they do that
Mm,
like with their replay stuff. Is the end of the year is like takes you, and I don't understand why they can't put that in the app.
mm-hmm.
That like that because it's been that way for a couple years, and I just don't understand why that's not in the app, and it takes you to a website. Anyways,
You did skip one, you know that, right?
oh yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Okay. All right. Anyway, moving right along then.
Photography, the stock camera app is great for a lot of people, but because I like to use big boy cameras in real life, I want similar controls in my iPhone, and so the one that I use is it's Pro Camera by Moment, um, and it just gives you extra controls over shutter speed and uh, ISO and all of the fun things. And it's got like you can do motion blur and light trails like for like extended exposure shots and that sort of stuff. So it gives you extra options on your phone that you don't get in the stock camera app. And I like having control over that sort of stuff because I'm a camera nerd.
Have you tried Halide?
Like when it first came out, a long there are probably 7 or 8 really good camera options out there. This just
Mm-hmm.
happens to be the one that I prefer.
Okay.
I know a lot of
I,
people
I
like it.
typically use Halide,
Yeah, a lot of people like that one too.
but I'm
One
also
of
not a camera nerd, so I
well, no, but that one's really powerful too. But also Moment is like a camera website and shop, and they first uh, kind of got famous for being the lens adapter type people that so you could do like super fisheye or telephoto like back before the iPhones had 3 cameras on them. Um, and they make cool stuff and they have like good classes. And so one of the reasons, besides the fact that it's a really good camera app and gives me what I want, is like that I've learned a lot from the folks that run that website, and so it's just a way to support them too. But yeah, so if you're into anything photo or video and you don't know what Moment is, go check out their website. Some cool stuff there. Photography sharing is, of course, Instagram. Um, it's really the only social media that I partake in on a regular basis. Because my Instagram is a very happy place. I have manicured it to make sure that I'm not seeing what my friends are eating for dinner because I don't care. I follow like National Geographic photographers, and like so it's just always very pretty, and nice. So yeah, I'm at Cam Brennan on Instagram if you want to say hi. And Mitch, you're at Radio Mitch, right?
Radio Mitch. Yep.
Indeed. All right. This next one I think I've talked about in the show before, and it's my podcast app. And it's called Snipd, SNIPD. And I still don't understand why everyone just agreed that app names just get spelled wrong as a thing across the board. But this app it's like claim to fame is like all this AI processing that it can do, and it can provide you like AI generated transcripts and chapters and blah, 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 blah. I don't care about that stuff. What I care about with this app is that you can take what they call snips. So like I hit a button and I can set the parameters for how long in general I want it to take. And it's going to take it from when I hit the button back like 40 seconds. And it saves that as a snip. And then it syncs with my Obsidian database and creates a file for every podcast episode with this transcript of the snips that I made. So as I'm listening to my podcast, I can hit a button and I know that when I'm done with that episode, in Obsidian will be a page or a document, right, for that episode with all the text of the snips that I pulled from that podcast. So I'm able to literally at the push of a button automatically save information that I gleaned from an episode to my Obsidian database for use at a later date, which is just chef's kiss good for me. So I'm a big fan of this app because of what it lets me do.
Does it work with Notion?
Yes. Let me double check.
See, and I'll be honest with you, I don't listen to my podcasts that way, so I wouldn't be saving stuff. But
yeah, it works.
And we've talked about this before. Like you just listen to your podcasts, and you expect different things out of your podcasts than I do.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
It syncs with Obsidian, Notion, Bear, Readwise, and Logsec.
Okay.
So
what I want to say clips and stuff like that from is Audible and the Kindle, because I feel like the way I use that is a little bit more like the way you use podcasts, to a degree. Like not, I mean, because you tend to listen to a lot of sermons, I think, and stuff like that.
Yeah, my podcasts are heavy on theology and church stuff. Yeah. So
yeah, podcasts for me are just goofing off.
Yeah, I'm not snipping like D&D podcasts or tech podcasts, like, because that stuff is like, I don't listen to those as often. Yeah, podcasts for me
I have 4 podcasts that I listen to every week, and they're all tech. I listen to Upgrade, I listen to MacBreak Weekly, I listen to Connected, and I listen to Accidental Tech Podcast. And there are other ones that I will listen to when I'm done with those 4, but those 4 are the priority every week because those are the ones that I enjoy listening to.
Yeah. Well, and even to the daily Bible reading podcast that Crossway put out is a great use for me on Snip. It's like, ooh, that's a verse I want to remember for today, right? And so I can just and it automatically saves it. And so at the end of the year, I'll have compiled all of the highlights from the Bible that I took for that year, which I think is going to be super cool to have. You know what I mean? And I can put them in a nice 2024 folder. Be like, this is what struck me this year, and then 2025, 2026, right? Like doing different plans or whatever. Like, I don't know. It's just really cool to me to be able to have that. And I can search for it, right? And then they're listed by date. And so I can know, like, oh man, back in January when we were reading through Genesis, this really stuck out to me. Do I still feel the same way about, so it's just neat to me. Yeah. So that's Snipped. Big fan.
This is a topic for another day, but I have a thought of how I want to use Notion for stuff like that for doing Bible study, but we'll have to save that for another episode.
Yes, please. I'm here for that.
So anyway, continue.
So reading, this one actually might get updated. because I just figured something out like a week ago. So usually I put all my ebooks in Apple Books and just called it a day, right? I have Kindle books too that are in the Kindle app that I bought that way. But what I realized is, so Readwise is a service, which we're going to talk about next, actually, that helps sync a lot of stuff from various places into Notion, into Obsidian, right? You can save like Twitter lists and RSS feeds and highlights from Kindle and highlights from books and that sort of stuff. But about a year and a half ago, I want to say, they came out with their own app called Reader. So it's Reader by Readwise. And Readwise, the service itself was it was a place that would collect all of your quotes and all of your highlights, and then like you would review them. That was its gimmick. But then it would also sync. But their Reader app is a totally separate app that lets you put your RSS feeds in, lets you add things to the inbox like from websites or whatever. But what I found out is it also accepts EPUB files. So I went through and took all of my EPUB files, all of them, like triple digits, and put them into Reader. And now when I read my ebooks in Reader, anything I highlight gets sent to Obsidian. So all of my book notes. Well, and one of the cool things about Crossway is if you're part of Crossway Plus, which I am, which is a free membership, you get like 30% off your books. But when you buy a physical book, you get a free ebook version of it. So a decent chunk of my library that I have physical books for, I also have the digital file of, which is an incredible deal. So I've got like half my library in Reader now. And so if I take any notes, I can, even if I'm reading physically, I can go back to Reader and highlight the same thing in Reader in that book, and then it automatically gets shipped to Obsidian and is there for me. So this is probably going to get changed from Apple Books to Reader by Readwise today, because I just figured that out like a week ago, and it's super cool. So worth checking out if that sounds appealing. Go ahead, Mitch. Sorry.
No, that's very interesting, because there's a bunch of PDFs that I have to read for class.
Yeah, you could totally.
I'm not doing a lot as far as highlighting and stuff in those, but I would almost be tempted. There is like 4 decent sized articles that we read for class here recently that were all on nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a ton of stuff in there that I'm like, man, this is really good. Like, I probably end up highlighting the whole thing, but it was all really good and stuff that I would have liked to have had, in Notion, or at least have access to. To be quite honest with you, I have them in Notion. I copy and paste them into Notion and then reformat them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a whole nother dance that I do that it's kind of I could talk about sometime, but I put them all into Notion so that I have that access to them, and I can highlight them in Notion, and I can, do all that so that it's right in Notion already. But I think it would be beneficial to have and I put them into Natural Reader as well, which I think I've talked about a couple times too. But but to have the ability to have the notes saved out separately into my Readwise integration in Notion would be pretty awesome, so that I can just copy and paste the highlights into stuff. Because when I've got to go back and do papers on some of this stuff, it's nice to have all those highlights, because then I can pull quotes from the book more easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's
absolutely. And not to jump in front of you here, but with the Kindle, we were doing a Bible study through Watchman Nee's the Spiritual Man, and I highlighted a bunch of stuff in that I found really interesting, and a lot of that is applying to the course module I'm in for my biblical counseling training. And so as I'm going through, I'm writing. We have discussion questions that we're writing and such, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there was a quote from that book. So I go into Notion and I go into all my highlights and I find it in there. or you can do it in the Kindle app too. There's a easy way to do it in there, but I find those quotes and I can copy and paste them with attribution and everything right into my discussions. So it's pretty cool.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, carry on.
Well, next up is Read and Review, and it's Readwise, the original Readwise app. And you can literally put stuff from anywhere, like Apple Books, Kindle, Instapaper, Pocket, Twitter, Medium, other apps that aren't even around anymore are still on this list, so I need to update that. Goodreads, Feedly, so it can, what's the right word? Collect lots of input, and then you can export highlights, right? Notion, Evernote, Roam Research, a bunch of other stuff, and then you can review those highlights if you want. I just use it as the routing service to get everything into Notion. Essentially, I don't really do the review with it. And I did for a while, and I had a really good streak going. And then I was like, I'm doing this just to have a streak going. This is dumb. But it's a great service. It's a really, really, really great service, especially if you are into having a really thorough database in Obsidian or Notion or any of the PKM apps as they're called now, right? I would dare say it's vital. Like, that's how much I rely on it. Next is smart home control. I just use Apple's home app for that. I don't do any of the others like Homebridge, or like there's a bunch of other utilities out there like Alexa, or like, so my home stuff is all HomeKit related, so Apple's app handles all of it. I do have some Nanoleaf bulbs that I can control more with the Nanoleaf app itself, as far as like setting scenes and all that sort of stuff. And I did that more at my old place because I had a spider light, with the long cables, and the lights were all different angles in one room, and I could do really cool scenes. And my daughter had like silly ones like unicorn surprise and butterfly beautiful that she would tell Siri that, and then the lights would do like pink and blue and like all the fun stuff for her, which was adorable. I don't have that set up at my new place, so I can set like rooms to different things, but it's not as fun as having 8 different lights in one room do all sorts of like night sky sort of stuff where it's like dark blue and like occasionally like a star will shine or whatever. That was much more immersive. But I use Apple Home for my lights, for my cameras, all that sort of stuff, and it's fine. It gets the job done. We'll see because there are other options out there, but this one's good enough for me, and I'm good with good enough. That's fine. I don't need crazy bells and whistles or.
I don't get super precious about my HomeKit stuff. There's some stuff that works with HomeKit. There's some stuff that doesn't work with HomeKit. I would prefer all my stuff work with HomeKit, but we kind of bought into a lot of this stuff at a time when there wasn't a lot of stuff that worked with HomeKit. So, and prices were weird too, because there was a time when I was making a choice to buy some connected bulbs. Mm-hmm. And the only really options you had that worked with HomeKit were Philips Hue, and
they were pricey.
And they were expensive. $150. Yep. So the landscape has gotten much better now. I should say that I bought the $50 3-pack of Nanoleaf bulbs and then had to buy the $100 HomePod Mini to be able to use them. But because I didn't have a thread router, so yep. but now that I have that, I can add as much of that in the house as I want to, because I have the thread router in the house now to run that. So
yeah.
But
and with the Matter protocol too becoming more ubiquitous, like I think in the next probably 2 years, we're gonna have a lot more options with how this stuff all communicates and gets controlled.
I hope so. I really hope so. But there's been like a really disappointing. Matter's been fairly disappointing to this point. So we'll see what happens. I'm hopeful, but yeah, hopeful but realistic.
That's fair.
And we might have a show title.
Jaded optimism. Yeah, that's. Up next is sports news, and I do not use the Apple Sports app. I subscribe to The Athletic, because I think ESPN is trash. So that means I get all my sports news with The Athletic, and much like Mitch showed in the Apple Sports app, you can select your teams, your leagues, all that sort of stuff. So you have access to them at the top, really easy just to get the latest news and scores and stuff from them. And then also the feed is then curated to the stuff that you follow. So like I'm not getting news about Milwaukee Brewers baseball because I don't care about Milwaukee Brewers baseball. I'm only getting news for the stuff that I have told the app I care about. There's also obviously the Discover tab, which is like all of the news that isn't, it's just all of the top news, regardless of what I've said I want. So if I want to go diving into stuff that's, like, oh, Oakland A's explore Coliseum lease extension, fan relations remain fraught. Like, I know that there's a big deal in Oakland about the A's leaving because the ownership sucks and yada, yada, yada. But like, that's not on my home feed, but I can still get to it. And then they also have a bunch of podcasts built into the app that you can choose to listen to. I don't listen to many of them, but it's a nice feature that they have. So yeah, that's where I get my sports news. And overall, it's pretty decent. And they have, one of the cool things too is they have like specific writers for specific beats. So like the same guy writes the U of M articles all the time. The same guy writes the Detroit Lions articles all the time. And so it's neat. And they'll do like mailbags where like you send in questions, they'll answer subscriber questions, and they're in the comments, talking with folks about their articles and stuff. It's kind of neat that way. All right, we got a couple left on the iPhone. Should we just blitz through these? Because I've talked about most of these before. Task Manager is Things. I've tried all of them, literally all of them. And Things is the one that works for me. And I know this is one of the most opinionated app choices out there. Is your Task Manager. People will die on the hill for OmniFocus or Todoist or whatever. Steven will occasionally talk about Remember the Milk, somewhat jokingly, and I think somewhat pining for the olden days on Connected. But Things is the one that works for me. I have it on all my machines, all my devices. It just works. I get that there are some things about it that people quibble with. None of that stuff bothers me. It does exactly what I want to do, how I want to do it, and it's great. Yeah, and like I said,
I went back
to tried all of them. Did you?
Yeah. Well, we talked about it not long ago.
Yeah.
But I went back to Things just because it's really nice to pay money and own something instead of subscribing to things. And I think before that, I had Good Task. I still use Good Task. I've talked about my dance that I do with Good Task, but if you don't know, you can go back a few episodes and I've talked about it. But I've used Todoist, which I really like Todoist. I just don't like paying for it every month.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice platform. I think if I really ended up using the web version of Todoist a lot more, or I needed a web version of Things for some reason or something like that, I think Todoist might make its way back into my normal, but I don't really need it right now. So I've gotten to the point now where pretty much I do everything on my phone and a little bit on my computer, and that's it. So Things really satisfies a lot of what I need. And there's a couple things that I've had to get used to about how it does certain things. But beyond that, it's a perfectly usable app, and it's pretty. It works really nice. There's a few things I'd like to see in the app that aren't there, but I think when it comes down to do apps, it ticks more buttons or ticks more check marks on my list than most of the apps do. Mm-hmm. I think when it comes right down to it, Todoist and maybe OmniFocus, between the two of them actually tick more boxes, but the costs make it prohibitive. So,
yeah, I haven't looked at the cost for OmniFocus in a while. I'm about to check that out because it's probably, is it still stupid?
I think it's a subscription now, and yeah, I'm pretty sure it's stupid.
Pricing. Okay, so for OmniFocus, it's $10 a month for the Mac, iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, and web access. Or you can pay a standard license of $75 or the pro license of $150.
Yeah. And it seems to me it was more expensive before. But I think Todoist is what, $15 a year?
I don't know.
I would have to look and see, but I don't think it's that expensive. I could totally be wrong about that.
Yeah, let's see. Pricing for Todoist is Pro is $4 a month if you bill yearly, so that's $48 a year.
All right, so it's more than that.
Business is $6 per month per member. There's a free version, but you only get 5 projects, 3 filter views 1 week. Yeah, so yeah, $48 a year.
I'm sorry, you can't limit me. Yeah. So no, I was paying $5 a month for that, but so I guess OmniFocus isn't super out of the ballpark. I mean, it's twice as much as Todoist, but it probably does twice as much as Todoist does. As far as options and stuff like that. And there's scripting and everything else that's involved with it too. So I mean, there's a lot to OmniFocus now. But really, when it comes down to it, like I used things years ago. There was a couple things I didn't care for about what they were doing, which caused me to look elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And at the time, OmniFocus was like everybody that wanted to get things done was using OmniFocus. And I thought, well, man, let's jump in and learn this. And then quite honestly, I don't need an app that takes like 5 minutes to put in a task, because I got to check this and I got to put when do I want to start it? When do I want to do? It's just, it gets really complicated really quickly. And for some people, that's great, and you know what, if that's what you want, awesome. But sometimes you just want to say, hey, I just need to do this one thing and it just needs to be done today, and that's it. And Things provides that.
Yeah. Agreed.
Anyway, we weren't going to be like super religious.
Well, what did I tell you? It's one of the most opinionated app choices people make, right? Oh, and we had opinions on it. So welcome to podcasting.
And they all have their strengths. I wouldn't tell anybody they're stupid for using any app. And so everybody has their own needs and wants certain things from these apps, and more power to them. My wife still uses a free version of OmniFocus, and she loves it. She uses it all the time. I can't do that. It's too fiddly putting new project or new to-dos in and stuff like that. So.
All right. Well, up next is video. And I have been a diehard fan of an app called Spark Camera for years at this point. Rumor has it was the first app that you could actually swipe to put filters on your video, and Instagram stole it from them essentially. And I don't use it for that. What I use Spark Camera for the most is you open the app and you can instantly be ready to take video. But what it has in the iPhone app is it's the best way to edit video on an iPhone that I've come across. You get all your clips in a row, then you can set the in point and the out point, you can set the transition, all that sort of stuff. So it makes making iPhone videos incredibly intuitive,
super fun. And then you can export it. And if like you want to export it to your Instagram story, well, in your video is 42 seconds or whatever, you can export it in 15, and 12. Like it'll automatically cut it to the right thing. Now I know that you can start doing longer clips and Instagram stories now, but I think you have to film those in the actual app. Or you can just export it to your straight to your Photos app and share it, via text or however you want to. But it's a really, really clean, easy to use app. They also have a feature where you can film the back camera and the front camera at the same time, where you're like in a little bubble in the bottom, so you can do videos that way if you want. That's not really my jam, but I can see that as a useful feature. Again, I shoot most everything I do on my big boy cameras. But when I need to take video on my phone, that's the app that I use, and it's wonderful. Okay. Oh my gosh, there's so many more still here. Holy cow. All right. VPN. I use ExpressVPN. That's the one I use. It's easy. It's great. It gets the job done. I use it on all my stuff. Weather, we've talked about this a ton on this show because we're both, again, like diehard fans of Carrot Weather. It's hysterical. It makes me laugh regularly. I've done all 120
requests. Yep. It is arguably one of the best weather apps just on its own. And then it has a whole bunch of other fun stuff in it. So, and we don't really need to say too much about it because
this will be like the 15th time we've told you how awesome it is. Web browser, I use Safari because I'm a basic Apple boy. Website management, I do all my websites in Squarespace. And so I have the apps on my phone so I can check in and make sure that everything's cool. Nothing weird's going on. Big fan of Squarespace myself. I've used them for years. In fact, CamBrennan.com is a Squarespace website, and has been.
It's the really, if you're coming into it wanting certain things from it, but don't want to have to manage everything, it's really the best WYSIWYG and web host. And they work with Tucows to register your domains as well. So this is not an ad, but it's really the best place to go for, just basic websites.
And they've added so much more functionality to their websites in the last 2 years, like the ability to have membership sites and the ability to have e-commerce stores, and like all that stuff was not there when I started using Squarespace, but it was available on WordPress. But the trade-off is you got to use WordPress and all the plugin you're right. So now Squarespace is offering, the e-commerce shopping and membership sites and that sort of stuff, which is just great. And you can do schedule. They've got a built-in scheduling thing. So if you run like an actual shop or you do appointments, you can run your scheduling through there. I was doing it for my photo stuff for a while. They have just lots of options. Or you could just have a blog. You know what I mean? So big fan.
And innerdialogue.show is actually part of my overall website on Squarespace at mitchcraig.online, all on Squarespace. And when you look at Cam's website and you look at my website, they're completely different. They're completely customized differently. Mine is really graphical, really, I've got a lot going on the main page, but it's all getting you to what I'm doing. And Cam's is very simple, very, very Spartan came to mind, but very, very minimalist, and still like, they're both, you can take a theme on Squarespace and make it as junked up or as clean as you want it, and just do what you want to do. It just gives you a starting point. And so, I think it's great. It gets all the hard stuff out of the way.
And podcast hosting. It's so simple to host a podcast. And that's one of the reason I switched to Squarespace is when I started my first podcast in 2015. So I've been on Squarespace for 9 years. Is because of the ease of podcast hosting. Right. And it just, once I realized, I was like, holy cow, this is, I was just,
you literally, you make a blog, a blog, and you add an audio file to the blog.
Yep.
And you can, if you want to put it on Apple Podcasts, you go in and you just click a few boxes, put in a little bit of information, and you have a podcast. And it's super easy.
Very nice. Up next, I'm gonna start going a little quicker here, just because I don't want to take 4 hours to do this. White noise. I use an app called Portal. I've been using Portal literally since like day 3 that it was around, to the point where like I'm grandfathered in for life.
Yep.
Because I was one of the and it's with the Mac app. So you can do phone, iPad. My kid uses it every night that she's here to go to sleep. She gets to pick the different one, and it changes the lights in her room to match. She just thinks it's the coolest thing ever. But I use like the video backgrounds on my laptop and my desktop monitor while I'm working, and it's just like the ocean just ebbing in and out in Iceland, right? Or the Amazon jungle, and it's just really cool. And there's all sorts of options for different locations all over the world, different types of nature sound. So it's not just like white noise. It's actual high definite. You can do spatial audio if you have the right kind of headphones with it, so that you actually feel like you are in the storm or standing on the edge of the lake. Can't recommend it enough. It's just really, really well done.
It's well worth it. I think when they came out with the Mac app, I was just blown away. One thing that I use it for is when I am at church in the morning, I don't typically go to our Sunday school class, because our Sunday school class is before our service. But where I sit, I'll be sitting in the sound booth working on stuff, and there is a class that is held in the sanctuary where I'm at. So what a lot of times I'll do is I will put Portal on in my pair of AirPods Pro 2 on my Mac while I'm working on stuff, have the background changing, and it literally blocks out everything. I'm in my own world. I'm transported to a different place, and I can just sit there and get work done. It's amazing. It's the closest thing to the Vision Pros I can get without a Vision Pro. I love it. The only exception I take to your recommendation is rather than calling it white noise, I would have called it ambient sound.
Yeah, that's fair. That's probably a better title. Writing, Obsidian. I've talked about Obsidian enough on this show and already this episode. I love it.
I'm a big Notion boy. So
yeah, and the beautiful thing, like, is that Notion and Obsidian are so different in the way that they are structured and function, but they accomplish the same goal, just in a very different way. And so I love the fact that we have, and they're not basic applications, right? Notion is deep, and you can do crazy stuff in Obsidian. But they are also both tools that allow you to do just what you want to do. You know, and then
it has gotten to the point where Notion is my outboard brain. Like
that's what
I'm afraid I'm going to forget goes into Notion, because I know I'm not going to forget it if I put it there.
Yeah, no, I've got literally everything in Obsidian, from Bible study stuff to recipes and temperatures to coffee stuff to notes about relationships that I've had. You know, like, just it's all there.
I have a database in Notion called My Brain. And that's just where all the miscellaneous stuff goes, you know. So
all right, so that's iPhone apps. I think up next is iPad. FaceTime, duh. That's just a good way to talk to people. And I like doing it on the iPad if I'm at home, because there's a bigger screen, right? And then, you know, you get to see their face. Photo editing, I do on my iPad. If I'm editing on my iPad, it's Lightroom CC, because Lightroom Classic does not run on the iPad. So I use Lightroom CC on my iPad, but that's only if I'm in a pinch. Otherwise, I'll be on my Mac, attached to my 4K display, using Lightroom Classic to get my photo editing done, which is good because clients like it when their stuff looks nice. Sketching is an app called Procreate. I'm not a very good sketcher, but it's nice to have an app that does that, especially when you have a child. You can be like, here, you know, we're on a road trip and you want to color. Here you go. Have fun. You know, go to town. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I would add to that list that's iPad specific? No, it's just a lot of repeat stuff. All right, cool. Finally, the Mac. Can I get a drum roll, please?
I don't know.
Audio editing. I use Logic Pro 10 for all my podcast editing. I know, Mitch, you're an Adobe Audition guy.
Yep. It's in my fingers. I just can't. Yeah. I can't do Logic because Logic, the fundamental way Logic works is so different from the way Audition works. Just from just a like it's fundamental. Like I don't know how to better say it. It just works so different that I just can't get my brain to wrap around and get it in my fingers, like keyboard shortcuts, all that kind of stuff. I've just got so many years of built up muscle memory. It's like I can't do it. I've tried before, but I just can't.
No, Audition's a great app. I tried it back in the day too, and I just came to the conclusion. I run Apple hardware, and both Logic and Final Cut, you pay one price and they're yours, right? And so I did the math, and I was like, okay, after like X amount of months, Adobe's Audition is just going to cost me extra. And I know that Apple software running on Apple hardware is generally really, really nice.
I would love the cost savings. It's just it doesn't work for me. I've been using Adobe Audition since it was cool at 2000. I literally
much better name.
That's when I used it, or that's before Adobe bought it. And that was before multi-track. It didn't even have multi-track editing in it yet. And so it's one of those things where I've just been using it so long. I was introduced to it when I was in broadcasting school, and I just, I can't use anything else. It just, anyway, carrying on.
The next category I have here is audio MacGyvering, which I'm quite proud of.
Great.
And it's audio hijack and sound source from Rogue Amoeba. We've talked a lot about both of these over these
episodes. Two apps are why I always have to wait to run a beta or anything else on one of my Macs. I can live without it usually on my laptop or on my MacBook. Can't live without it on my iMac. So, this is something where like I would probably be jumping on the betas a lot quicker on my devices, in the spring and summer, if it wasn't for these two apps, because they do not release the updated apps until and there's a good reason for it, but they don't release the updated apps until the operating system's release. So
yep. As mentioned earlier, photo editing on the Mac goes to Lightroom Classic. I'm used to it. It has different controls and options than Lightroom CC that give me more functionality and control over the end product of my images, which again, when people are paying you for them, I'd like to have the best option out there so I can deliver the best product.
And for me, if I can throw mine
in. Sorry.
I will typically use like Photomator or Pixelmator, depending. But I don't do mine professionally. This is just, I'm looking for little tweaks here and there on a photo. Quite honestly, most of the photo editing I do is right in the Photos app. There's it's fully featured enough for me. If I'm doing graphic design, that's where I'm going to be in Pixelmator. So
yeah. And those are good apps too. I haven't used Pixelmator in a while though. I remember when it came out. I was like, "Ooh, this looks fun."
They just started adding some AI stuff into it, so I'm waiting to see how that's. I'm waiting to see what they do with that. So,
my Spotlight replacement of choice is Raycast. Alfred. I was a long time Alfred user. I've been on the Raycast train for about a year now, probably. I like it. It gets the job done. Gives me options. I can run shortcuts from it. Fun stuff. But it's
for some
one of those
reason
things.
I cannot remember what I use. I can't remember the name of it. I know what I use, but I can't remember the name.
Command space, bro. Check it out. What is it? What comes up when you
I did, but it's launch bar. Sorry.
There we go. All right, I got
been using it so long I forgot what it's called.
Yeah. So I got two more, and then this rundown of my recommended apps is finished. Video editing, Final Cut Pro 10, like I said. I've used DaVinci and Premiere in the past as well, but I know, like you with Audition, I know Final Cut so well that anything else is going to be hard to switch to. Like DaVinci I was like, oh, this hurts my head. I can't. Yeah. It's super powerful. And then also, I just didn't want to pay for Premiere. I was paying like $50 or $60 a month for like Premiere, Photoshop, or whatever. And I was like, I can buy Final Cut for $300 and be done. And I bought it probably 8 years ago, 7 years ago, and haven't paid a penny since. Now I know it eventually they'll come out with a new one, but who knows? That might not be for another 3 years. like at that point, it would be like $30 a year for that product, which is incredible because I can do really, really nice things in Final Cut, video wise.
And the little bit that I've done, Final Cut has done exactly what I needed to, and it's easy enough to use that I didn't have to, take a 30-hour course to use it. So, and the only other one that I really played with is on the iPad, and that was LumaFusion.
Oh yeah, I never tried that one.
Did a little bit in that. Otherwise, most of the time it's just trimming here, trimming there, and and so then I just do that in the Photos app usually. So, but
all right, the last one for window management, I use an app called Moom, and it's just a little utility that lives in my bar, and I can set certain hotkeys to set window sizes, or I can also have certain presets where it'll put them side by side, half and half. And there's these sorts of apps, like there's like 15 options that do the same thing, and it just depends. This is the one that I picked, and I've just stuck with it because I'm used to how it works.
I'm a Mosaic boy, so
yeah, there are other options out there that do the exact same stuff. It just depends on which one catches your eye, right? Or works, or the one that you just have used forever. So that's it, Mitch. That's the list of my recommended applications.
Yep. So, and I've got nothing else to add. I think anything that I had to add, I added while we were talking about the different categories. If there was anything, just stressing the Logos on the Mac.
Yeah, that's true.
I think
that probably needs to get added.
Yeah, it's such a fully featured app. The only other Bible app that I use would be Literal Word, just because the few things as far as like looking into the original languages and stuff like that, it's just a little bit easier, less complicated than using Logos. So if you need something real quick, it's a way to get something real quick. But 99% of the time I'm in Logos for Bible study. So
yeah, there's obviously other stuff that I use, but it's not worth putting on the list, right?
Yeah.
So cool. Thanks for letting me do that. That was fun.
Yeah,
that's the most I've talked on this show ever.
Yeah, I think I'm inspired to do something similar on my website, but as we were going through, like I could already tell you that there's different categories that I want to put in, and like I mentioned the one name change, and I don't know that I could limit myself to one per category, so one app per category. So I'd probably take the way you framed it out and build it to the way I would want to. And there's some categories I might not have in there either, just because they're not categories that are super important for the way that I work. So anyway.
And I will say, just because we're nerds and we like this stuff, all of the app icons I got, I have a shortcut that Federico built.
Okay.
And it will, you type in the name of the app in the shortcut, and it goes to the app store's like media files and just pulls the icon.
Oh, that's cool.
It was awesome. So it made getting all of the icons for the apps like just so quick. And then I threw all of them into Photoshop to make the header image. Which is kind of obnoxious, but also kind of makes me laugh because it is obnoxious. Yeah. So, anyways, just a neat way that, yeah, it was just a neat way that shortcuts actually wasn't gimmicky. Like, oh, I can hit a button and send 1,000 poop emojis to a friend, but like, it actually went and did something for me, right? That would have taken me a lot longer to do without it. So I was like, yes, shortcuts for the win, man. Real life application. Gotta love it. So that's that, friends. Thanks for tagging along.
All right. Are you ready to talk about what's delighting us today?
Oh, sure.
All right. Well, what's delighting you today, Cam?
Time with old friends. And I know that makes me sound sappy, but I don't care. I went down to my old town, my old stomping grounds last weekend for the first time in like 3 months. And went to church with all my friends and went out to lunch after. We were at the restaurant for like 2 hours, just like 20 of us just hanging out. And then this Sunday, they're all a big group of them are heading up, actually north of me, to go to a concert. And so I'm going to meet up with them and go to the concert as well. So 2 weekends in a row of getting to see people that I care about and have history with, and saw me through a lot of the crap that I've been through in recent years. So it was nice, and I'm looking forward to Sunday night. Not so much for the concert, but just to hang out with we're going to dinner beforehand, so just hang out with my friends and see everybody, and then the concert's just an excuse, right, to get together. So that's what's delighting me.
All right.
What about you?
Well, I got 3 things again this week, because there's 3 things that I was excited about, and I had to make a choice which one I was going to talk about. I'm rewatching The Office right now. I'm excited about Brewer Baseball coming back. But there's a book that I was introduced to this author recently. And I just thought about this while we were doing the show here, so I added it to the show notes. But his name is William Lane Craig. And
yeah. Reasonable Faith. Yeah.
So he which I have not read that one yet. But but he is a Christian philosopher. If you wanted to peg him. And I never realized how much fun philosophy could be. So
that's so funny, because I would never have pegged him as a fun guy.
Yeah. So On Guard is the name of the book, which is it's terrible. It's a terrible title. The cover of the book is awful. It's one of these books that I think they were really trying to sell as like a here's a Bible study you can do in your at your church. And so it's just, yeah. But anyway, the book itself is, like you said, it's a dense book. Like, this guy doesn't write books that aren't dense, because he thinks on a level that is incredible. But I think one of the reasons that I really enjoy it is because I like thinking on this level. I love just how really deep he gets on certain subjects. And so I'm reading On Guard. Very nice. And
for the folks watching.
And the whole book is, I want to say it's an offshoot of his doctoral dissertation.
Okay.
Where he's proving the existence of God cosmologically.
Yeah, he's a big apologist when it comes to that sort of like the cosmological argument, that sort of stuff. And he's
he's proving the existence of God through science and through logic. And
Christians aren't allowed to use science. Come on, Mitch.
Or logic, for that matter. but it is incredible how he goes through and he has developed this cosmological argument for the existence of God, based on a very old work that's been done, but kind of has brought it into modern day as far as that goes. And it's funny because I don't think, if you're sitting down with an atheist that wants to prove something about science, I don't know that there's any argument that can stand up against this argument. He really focuses hard on the idea that every created being, or every being that has a beginning has to have a cause. And so something had to cause that being to exist. And so he focuses on that idea, but then the idea that something that is caused can't really cause another being to come into existence. Now you could argue that, a baby being born or something like that, where we have some control over that. But when it comes to cosmologically, the universe, like the universe cannot create its own things, So he talks a lot about how if it has a beginning, it has a cause, and how there has to be something out there that doesn't have a cause that has caused everything else to come to have this beginning. And that entity or that thing that doesn't have the cause has to not have a beginning, and therefore not have an end. And so he's proving through a logical argument and through science that there has to be something that has caused everything to happen. Mm-hmm. And it's just such a fascinating argument. And I'm only partway through the book, but I was listening to it on 1.5 speed, and I had to slow it down. So
you're a madman.
I slowed it down to 1.2. So, but I'm sorry, book readers on Audible read so slow. So I want to get the information. But I will probably have to go back and reread this, and I will probably have to buy a copy of the book to be able to go through and plod through this a little bit more. I'm kind of getting I'm skimming off the top right now, all the information that he's giving. And I'm sure there's going to be benefit for me to go deeper into his argument, but it's good. I'm really enjoying it. So
good.
And Reasonable Faith. And what was the other book that I already purchased this book on Audible? The Philosophical Foundations for a Christian Worldview. That's 40 hours long. So it sounds like it's going to be fun.
Golly.
Another author, if I may, there's another author that we're reading a book for class right now called Love Thy Body. Is Nancy R. Pearcey. Another one that I highly recommend, and I have her latest book in Audible, The Toxic War on Masculinity, that I'm looking forward to reading. So recommended. She's another one that I think it's her books are really good. They're probably a little bit more applicable, but William Lane Craig stuff is just really good. So I will say that I have not read this, and I'm interested to hear his argument. But something that my pastor warned me about with William Lane Craig is he does not believe in the literal Adam and Eve of creation. So that's something to kind of watch out for. So, but I'm interested to see what his argument is on that. I will probably not agree with him, but it should be an interesting argument at the very least.
Yeah, and if you want to read another Christian philosopher that's going to break your brain, check out Alvin Plantinga, Warranted Christian Belief. It'll hurt. It'll hurt, but it'll be good.
Might have to send me a link to that.
It's
if you can get a link on Amazon.
This is what the old version looks like. Warranted Christian Belief, Alvin Plantinga.
Oh, I've seen. I'm like kind of aware of this book. Did you show that to me before, or maybe it came up?
I don't think so.
You know what? It came up in my my biblical counseling training class last week.
Oh, really?
That's where I saw it. They pulled that off the shelf, and were my instructor has it too. So.
And two more just for fun, because you piqued my nerdy book interest now.
All right.
The Disappearance of Moral Knowledge by Dallas Willard, who, again, I don't know if I've mentioned Dallas. Anything that Dallas Willard wrote, you should read. Divine Conspiracy being at the top of the list. And then this one just came out, I think within the last year, The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self by Carl Trueman. And it's about, it says cultural amnesia, expressive individualism, and the road to the sexual revolution. So it's a Christian philosopher and historian's view on how the heck we got to where we are right now with our culture. So anyways, lots of fun recommendations. This is good.
I need to ask you a favor.
Okay.
I need you to jot those down for me. Send them to me.
Okay.
Either text me or throw them in the document for the show notes today or something like that, just so that I can grab those, at least put them on a wish list or something like that.
Yeah, I will.
All right. While you're doing that, I totally forgot a really great story from this last week that I wanted to share on the show. So this is bonus content, everybody. This is good stuff. So the other day I came home from work and I have my Loop Deck. We've talked about it on the show before. If you guys aren't familiar with the Loop Deck, look it up. It's really cool. I've got the Loop Deck Live S, which has 15. It's like a Stream Deck. If you guys have used the Stream Deck before, 15 buttons that are all programmable. There are 4 other buttons outside of that are physical buttons instead of touchscreen buttons that you can program to different things. And then it's got 2 knobs on it. So Mitch left it sitting on the sofa with his MacBook the other day, not thinking at all. And if you see see what I wrote in the document, I wrote the story. My title of the story is Cat versus Loop Deck. I came home.
It's my favorite anime.
And one of the knobs is missing.
Oh, no.
And the other knob was all chewed up. I have that knob somewhere here. Hold on. Where did I put that? Oh, here it is. So the knob, so that you can see it, and anybody that's watching this on the live stream can see it. I don't know if you can see.
Oh,
it's all chewed up. Wow. Yeah, and so that doesn't. I don't want to use that. So I pulled the knob off. My Loop Deck is currently knobless. But I contacted Loop Deck through their support forum, understanding that it was probably software support that I was going to be sending this to. And I says, is there any way that you guys can get me a couple of new knobs for my my Loop Deck? Because, and I explained, my cat chewed. I was totally honest. I'm like, I'm not gonna mess around. My cat chewed one up, and the other one's gone. So the cat's like hid it somewhere. And I said, so I know that you guys don't have to help me out with this, but I'd really appreciate it if I could get some help with this. If you guys had a couple of knobs that you could send me, I'd really appreciate it. Or is there a way to get replacement knobs for this? And I was willing to pay for them 20, 30, 40 bucks. I don't even care. I just want my knobs back. So somebody reached out and I should probably pull up the email. I don't know if I have it saved. I think it's probably in my set aside emails. Yeah, here it is. So I sent the email, and the email I got back, thank you for reaching out to us. I'm sorry to hear about your chewed up dials. We will check for possible replacement options. If you could please provide me with the following information: your street address, contact phone number, and picture of the cat, optional.
Oh, that's awesome.
This suddenly became one of my favorite companies to deal with.
That was,
and what's even funny is because I did contact the support forum, the title of the email is Loop Deck Limited RE:bug report. So it's just kind of cracked me up that it said that. They said once they receive this information, they'll explore replacement options. So I sent my address, phone number, and then I wrote, because I set it up as, here's my address, and then put my address in there. Here's my phone number, and I put my phone number in here. And then I said the holy terror and took a picture of the cat. The cat's picture in there. And the picture had both of my cats in it. So the reply I get back from them, hey, thank you for sending your address and photo of your mischievous duo. It's clear they have great taste in tech products.
Oh, I love that. That's so good.
And then they said, I checked, and unfortunately, we're currently out of replacement dial caps. As soon as we're back in stock, we'll make sure a set is sent out to you to restore your setup. So they were very, very cool about it. And so I'm very appreciative of that.
That's awesome. Loop Deck support team for the win. Well done.
You know what? I will buy stuff from this company in the future. That's how you support your customers. So,
yep. That's awesome.
So anyway, all right. Well, we've talked about our websites on the show already today, but if you do want to know more about us, find out more information, check out our back catalog, or just enjoy our Squarespace sites, you can check out innerdialogue.show for the podcast. You can also check out my site, mitchcraig.online. And Cam, where can people find you?
CamBrennan.com.
Very nice. All right. Well, that's it for the show today. I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you guys have questions, comments, anything like that, hit up innerdialogue.show and click on our feedback button and leave your questions and comments right there. All right. Thanks, guys. And we'll see you back here next week. Cam, it's been a pleasure, sir.
Indeed. Farewell.
Later. I got that email back from Loop Deck and I laughed out loud. I was like, I absolutely love these people. Here I am in my moment of frustration and upset, and they're like, "Oh yeah, yep, we'll help you out, but send a picture of your cat." Like, they didn't have to do that, but that just kind of made me laugh and made it a little bit better. So very pleased.
Yeah, that's good.
Very cool. Let's get YouTube off the air. Everybody that's on YouTube,